And then they brought shit. You got the thing, not that. Newspaper on. There's a thing telling me, I hope the Virginia to say, people say, because we don't understand what might be a change. And then they go, it's small. Yeah, and I think what's going to happen is graduation. A biggest asset of my those days used to go, but I was the third child, I was going to take my brothers to either New York nice to meet you.
It's a late afternoon or it's an early evening. So let's turn this good evening to all of you and welcome to this public lecture. I've met the guest speaker for the very first time this year, and this is your second public lecture for the university. It was nice meeting you. Before I actually start with the program, I was a bit worried coming here earlier. I went to the BOF this afternoon and I had my shirt on without my tie and without this jacket. And our dean was sharing the meeting then. As I walked in, he mentioned that I look very formal and almost like a deacon or a pastor. I have to tell him that I don't think my wife will agree with that because that she would not agree with that motto. Anything with the church, it's not me according to her. And so I was a bit worried coming here now with a tie and a jacket. So I don't know. I don't think there's a more formal level beyond or above a priest. So I don't know what you're going to call me now.
Maybe you must ask Pastor Eddie.
Pastor Eddie, I'll give you that title. Good evening, people. I actually, when I was asked to do this, take this all over, I looked at your topic for this evening, and I could relate it to it somehow, based on my previous experience in industry. I used to be a procurement officer at General Motors, and part of your daily responsibilities, you go out and competitive quote and obtain the best prices for the company, and it's high value components and it's high volume components. And it was amazing to see perhaps 2 or 3 companies in the same industry making the same component, servicing the same client base. It was amazing to see that the marketing strategies differed to a large extent. You could also see in that period, it was quite visible for the buyers then, that those that stagnated and didn't evolve with the times, who did not adjust their marketing strategy, those were the ones that actually sort of fell out and their market share fell as a result. And those who actually reinvented their strategies, the one that survived. So I'm looking forward to your lecture this evening. And so without further ado, I'm going to call on Professor Hendrik Roy, our dean, to do the show welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan and colleagues. So, Program Director, esteemed guests, colleagues and friends, good evening, goeienaand already. It's my great pleasure and privilege to welcome you to this public lecture in the Faculty of Business and Economic Sciences, where it's hosted by the School of Management Sciences, and of course presented by one of our adjunct professors, Mattheus. With this lecture entitled Marketing Reinvention, Do You Change Like a Butterfly or a Bull? We will hopefully gain more perspective on the ongoing demands of a rapidly changing world. The world is undergoing rapid change and constant transformations like we've never seen before, and marketing is surely asserting its preeminent role as a cornerstone of any successful business in such transformational business circumstances. If we think of the rise of the digital platforms, the ever-shifting consumer expectations and preferences, and technological advancements, then you soon realize the multitude of challenges, but more importantly, the unbounded range of opportunities that it brings as well. It is in this context of today's lecture where the specific significance lies as to how companies and businesses are segmented into being innovative, adaptive, and reinventing their marketing strategies to stay relevant and to thrive under such changes. I'm particularly delighted to, of course, welcome you back in this space again today, Doug. And as one of our adjunct professors, you're of course also an expert in the field, and therefore we look particularly forward to the message that you will bring to us with this kind of very enticing title. When it's changing like a bull, I always think about the expression of bull in a china shop, and kind of nothing lasts afterwards. So it might be a very interesting kind of analogy. So we are truly honored to have you with us tonight, and that you share your insights with us into how organizations are navigating these shifts and what the future holds for us in terms of these shifts. I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank all my colleagues for arranging this event tonight and to be proactive in having this public lecture, addressing so many of the aspects of business in the quest to stay competitive. Also to each of you attending tonight's lecture, both here physically and online, your presence is appreciated, and it's testament to the importance of understanding and embracing the future of marketing and its critical role in business for tomorrow. There will also be, of course, a presentation or an exhibition of our peri-urban training program at our Mission Vale campuses. So I would, of course, also invite you to have a look at our exhibitions around that. The peri-urban training forms part of our faculty's engagement initiative, so that we can also, as a faculty, remain in contact with our various publics and also remain relevant to our context as a university in service to society. I want to encourage each of you also to engage with Professor Mattheus this evening and to exchange ideas, ask questions on how marketing reinvention could, of course, impact your business and your immediate environment. So with that said, thank you once again for attending and welcome to what promises to be an enlightening and inspiring session. Thank you, dankie, en kos.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Oud, for the welcome. So now I call on Professor Marij van Eck to introduce our guest lecturer. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everyone. I think I have the very easy task of introducing Doug tonight. And as Prof. Lloyd indicated, he's our young professor in the Faculty of Business and Economic Sciences. He's also a business executive, a consultant, an executive education facilitator, and most importantly for tonight, he is linked to the Faculty of Business and Economic Sciences. With over 35 years of experience in various industries, often in various senior roles, he has a wealth of knowledge and expertise. One of his biggest highlights was leading the team responsible for South Africa's fastest growing brand in 2018 with a 48% year-on-year growth, making it the 16th most valuable brand in the country with a value of $986 million. Additionally, he's an international member of the Institute of Directors in the UK, and he's also proud to facilitate an annual course at Nelson Mandela University for African delegates on the business of sport in conjunction with FIFA. Doug's educational journey began at the University of Port Elizabeth, now the Nelson Mandela University, where he earned a BCom with a major in business and industrial psychology, followed by a BCom honours in business, and subsequently obtained an MBA from the Wits Business School in Johannesburg. He also holds a DBA from the University of Phoenix in Arizona, USA, with his dissertation focusing on organizational culture. His knowledge areas of expertise range from marketing, leadership, strategy, customer experience, and business reinvention. Doug has consulted and practiced on both South Africa and global projects, and he gained his experience working in several industries ranging from cellular communications, office automation, entertainment, and manufacturing. Doug, I would like to welcome you to the stage, and I must say I am also very impressed by your title And I'm wondering how you will feel after tonight. Will you sit on the bull side or will you sit on the butterfly side? So please welcome Professor Mattheus.
Thanks very much, Prof. And before I start, a big well done again on last night. Congratulations. For those of you who weren't there and not aware, Professor Van Eyck was awarded a full professorship, the highest level of academic achievement at the university. So well done. Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Dean. I mean, from my side, it's always nice to be back here. This is my home university, it's my hometown, so it's always nice to come back to the Bay and enjoy some of the friendly hospitality of the region. It's always nice, as I say. And tonight, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you on a whirlwind tour around the world of examples of companies that I know. Some of them I've consulted with. Some of them I've interacted with. So what I like to do is not just pull stuff off the internet and use third-hand data. This is not a deep academic talk. This is more a chat about the life that we live all around us. And I think, as Professor Lloyd said, some companies are reinventing, and sadly, some aren't. And we'll talk a little bit about those as we go along. So what I want to do is just, and the talk is the butterfly or the bull, and we'll get into that a little bit later. On the board, lots of writing. Those are the world's top brands, valued brands. And if you look at them, they're all in the tech media space. The exception perhaps being Amazon, that started off logistics and has moved into other areas. So the size of the bubble will give you the size of the volume, Apple, Microsoft, and those. But the interesting part isn't really that, it's the writing and the middle bit about how come some companies are moving and they seem to be moving faster than others. And the real question again is, from tonight, what can we do in our personal life? Is there one or two things we can take away and perhaps implement in terms of change and the ability to move in a direction, largely fueled by the changing consumer? And other companies are sadly not doing that. And the end result, I think, is evident in many cases. Living in South Africa is not an easy place. We know that. That picture is from Time magazine a few years ago. The very few haves and lots of have-nots. The Gini coefficient is the actual term, the gap between the few and the many who don't have. Now, as consumer behaviorists and as marketers, it's so important to understand the context in which we live, because, marketing is not something you do in a laboratory. So often, I've found through my career that often strategists sit in a bubble, but have actually never met a customer. And that's the crazy part. If there's one thing I could have done over in my career, if I could have it over again, I'd take more people with me, and they don't have to have the title marketing on their then proverbial business card. That's the one thing that I would do over, because I spent so much time looking at the market. I probably neglected other people who could have been ambassadors, and I'll talk about that as well. And when people say the market, which market? Are we talking about the market over the road, the boardwalk, and its flash shops? Are we talking about a flash car dealership, or are we talking about the huge informal market? And I always make the point, this is not a judgment call. The one's not better than the other. That's not what it's about. They're different in terms of consumption. I spent a large part of my career in the mobile space business. And if you look at the informal trade of prepaid, in terms of behavior, how people wouldn't have 15 Rand at one time. They'd have 5 Rand, a few hours later, 5 Rand, and a few hours later. So if I looked at the analysis of how people in that sector, that segment purchase prepaid, very, very different to if I'd gone to the V&A waterfront in Sandton Mall. So all I'm saying is it's important to understand how different companies operate and, of course, how they speak with the changing and ever-changing market. 6 areas we're going to look at. We're going to talk about experience, and ironically, Professor Van Eyck spoke a large part of her chat last night was around the experience of marketing, and not just the tangible product, but the augmented product and the environment in which you find yourself. Moving at the speed of your customers, I'll give you some examples of that. Your point of difference etc. on the, as you can see on the board. And what I want to do is go into the first story straight away. I'm going to take you back a long time when I was a little kid. I was at school growing up here in the Bay, and I got my very first pair of Nike running shoes. Very first pair of branded shoes. And I love these shoes. I mean, they were my prized possession. In those days, it was before the internet and before email. So we still had letters and pens and all kinds of stuff. And I kept that box. And I put all the things that I valued in my Nike shoebox. Now, secretly, I felt a little bit odd, a little bit strange, keeping a box. But it wasn't a box. It was a Nike box. It was my first Nike box. Anyway, I kept all the things of value. I didn't really tell anybody because I thought, secretly, I'm a little bit odd. But anyway, be that as it may. We're all a little bit odd. Fast forward to my very first trip to London, many years later. I go and I wanted to see all the fantastic things in the Red Bus, the Thames, Buckingham Palace, all the stuff that one does on your very first trip to London, including this magical store called Harrods. And I wanted to go see Harrods. And I go into Harrods, and it's everything that I imagined it to be, including this whole department where you can buy all these Harrod things, teddy bears, and including a bag. And then I saw this weird behavior of people taking other packets and putting it into the Harrods packet. And then they almost walk more upright. They're almost prouder. And immediately I felt better about my Nike box because I wasn't that weird. It was my version of Harrods. And still today you see that behavior. So the question really as a brand practitioner is what is the rational, and people don't want to be called irrational, so let's call it emotional. Rational and emotional attachment to a brand. Because some brands have function, they have a functional benefit to it. You can explain to me rationally why you bought something. And as a practitioner and as people in industry, we need to understand that sometimes people make what we think to be odd decisions. Anyway, so I was going to do this similar talk earlier this year using a similar example, and I happened to be in London, so I thought, let me now not go and be out of touch. Let me go back to Harrods to see if this thing is still there. Because I want to use the example. I don't want some guy saying, listen, and you're joking, they closed down 10 years ago. So I go there. Guess what? It's bigger than ever before. There are more people buying packets, more people walking more upright. It's bizarre. And the point of the story is, it's only bizarre for me, but as a practitioner, as somebody who wants to market something to a consumer, who am I to judge? Who am I to judge people? One needs to understand and put yourself in a position that people do buy things on an emotional attachment. There's a whole school of work called behavioral economics, by its very nature, behavioral science and economics put together. Lots of top people doing it. One guy is Professor Dan Ariely out of America, talks about the irrational behavior, and he's got a book called Predictably Irrational. Did a lot of work with discovery. So if you look at two companies that I think continue to reinvent themselves, Discovery, the group 7 verticals, and of course the darling, the poster kid of South African industry, of course, Checkers. No talk would be complete without Checkers. 5, 6, 10 years ago, they weren't that flash. I tell you what, they really, really, really have reinvented themselves and using a lot of thinking around behavioral economics. Moving from London to Cape Town. A few years ago, I was chairing a committee of marketers judging marketing awards. So not advertising, not like the Luries and those things, marketing effectiveness awards. And there were a whole lot of entries. This was one of the finalists. It's a lady called Tiniko Magiza. She's the CMO at the V&A Waterfront. Most of us, all of us probably know the V&A Waterfront. Flash got all the bits and pieces, hotel, pubs, restaurants, etc. If you look at those entries with 5 finalists, Tiniko's budget was minuscule compared to the other 4. I'm not going to mention the companies, irrelevant. They had massive budgets, massive projects, all the rest of it. And the story is she wasn't confined by the number because her mind was bigger than the number. She allowed herself expansion. So her story was, she said, I'm a Christian, so I believe in Christmas and the Lord and all the rest of it. So she says, but I don't understand the Christmas decorations. This is this plastic tinsel, and it's this Father Christmas and the sleigh and the reindeers and the fake snow. She says, as an African lady, I've never seen snow. I've never seen a reindeer, and I'm almost sure I've never seen a Father Christmas. So she said, so taking all of that, so that's the one side. And she says, we got a 40% unemployment rate in the country. And lots of people, not just South Africans, but from Southern Africa, are very good at arts and crafts. And I'm sure we're going to see, Paul, we're going to see some of the work tonight. Beadwork, upholstery work, embroidery, etc., etc. So she then created a space for craftspeople to come in and design the Christmas decorations for the whole mall. This has been going on for a few years. So if you're down at Cape Town over the December-January period, you will see a campaign called Joy from Africa to the World. And not only did she give them this opportunity as a once-off, that's not sustainable. She had all these QR codes, and you can see at the back there, these are all over the mall, an opportunity for people to buy. So she created a little microcosm of an economy with people. And so in turn, she said, I want to break this notion that we're going to have the Father Christmas. I do believe in Christmas, but we're going to have African Christmas. So this, she didn't win the award, but she was in the finalists. And I can tell you right now, all the judges were so impressed by the thinking, where her mindset far outweighed the budget. Because technically, on a number for number, she was just not in the equation. But it's not about numbers. And what I want to do is show you some examples of a philosophy of reinvention. We're going to get into some big capital stuff where it does take a little bit of money and thinking. A lot of these are not that. It's an attitude. It's an ability to get up as South Africans and do stuff. Staying at the speed of your customer. It's no use being in the theme of Father Christmas, coming in and it's New Year's and you've got the thing. And we look at logistics, and of course we're going to chat checkers in a few minutes. You look at the logistics and how we live in a world of 2024 where we don't accept that things aren't going to arrive on time, and that there's reverse logistics. If I don't like the color, the shoe doesn't fit, it must go back, and so on and so forth. And so it's so important to be able to move at the speed of your customer. A lot of writing on that slide, but don't go through it all, other than Thomas Schaefer, and a lot of you probably know him from VW, head of VW brand, and they themselves globally are going through a massive reinvention, introspection exercise, the brand Volkswagen and VW. And he quotes a PwC survey where 4,700 CEOs internationally talk about their business perhaps being on the wrong trajectory. The late Jack Walsh, former CEO of General Electric, speaks about speed of change. It almost seems like the world's spinning faster. And what he says is, if your industry or sector is spinning faster than you, it generally ends badly. And so how do we know the rate of change? How do we know the rate of speed at which things are spinning? So often, you can get it from research and insights, so often people do that, but they don't bother to work through the research and insights because I know better. Simple. In today's complex society, you need to do it. And the last one is Professor Rita McGrath from America, talks about transient change. It's for, those guys that surf. Professor, you know what I'm talking about. You go out, I'm not a surfer, but you know the notion. You're out on the board, turn around, catch a wave, come out, turn around, as the wave dissipates, you go out again. That's generally the exercise. It's not a once-off thing. And she talks about change not being a once-off. Again, you can go into the research, look at how many companies are being started, how many companies are failing. You're looking at shortened work, a length of business cycles. I look back at my career. My very first job was at Firestone. I was very sad to hear that they're no longer producing tires in the Eastern Cape, which is, again, one of those really sad stories, because I have such fond memories of my very first job coming out of the then UPE, now Mandela University, going into industry and trade, and understanding the rate of change. Although it was much slower those days, at least, I learned invaluable lessons. And the one thing that I often bring through in most of my careers and services is the honesty of production. The honesty of production. You either make it or you don't make it. It goes through quality control. It's often binary. Yesterday, I hadn't done this for many years. I had a little bit of free time. I took a drive through and I did the VW tour. Fantastic. I mean, the robots, the robotics, unbelievable. And what struck me, besides the production, which I enjoy, almost that smell of the factory, takes you right back. And if you've been there, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Wasn't just that. was the fact that they were doing a tour, and I know it's not brand new, in a factory, because they realized they need to create moments of magic and moments of marketing within a production environment. Now, if I take it right back to my time at Firestone, I guess those days, if we said to the production manager, we're going to take people's use, the people don't walk through the factory, we're getting in the way of the machines. And so, in a working factory, and the staff were all polite. I mean, people were waving, and it was part of the whole show. And it was almost like they were on show whilst making the Polo and Polo Viva. So a fantastic example right here. You want to bottle it, and you want to multiply that type of thing. What I want to do now is play you a very short video on one of the best companies who's reinvented. Of course, it's the Shoprite Group, because a shopper, a grocery store across the continent, you look at the ongoing work that they're doing. I mean, the latest, of course, a few days ago, they spoke about buying the rest of their value chain of their fulfillment of 6060. That thing's only 5 years old. It came about in 2019. It seems like it's been around a long time. Some of the other retailers, perhaps not at that place. Traditionally, Woolworths, Pick n Pay, enjoyed a spot. To a degree, Spar, much smaller somewhere else. And Checkers was somewhere else. Have leapfrogged it. You look at the alignments, you look at the deals they've done across not just the ambassadors, the latest being Jamie Oliver, of course, you look at Krispy Kreme, and so on and so on. There's a fantastic Checkers just across. I went there to walk the streets, and I want to talk to you about something that is not here and not visible. We all know what I'm talking about. This video is a few years ago. You can see by the face masks. You look at the evolution just from this video, but a fantastic an example of a South African company that has really done exceptionally well and continues to do so.
Was a realization that customers are transforming faster than we do. Retail is as much about doing the old things well as it is about using technology to get products to customers in a cheaper and faster way.
We've already seen some great innovation coming out here. One being the extra savings rewards program, and then the groundbreaking 6060 on-demand grocery delivery service. We take our enhanced, very rich customer data, marry them with what Shoprite is proven to do, some unsurpassed level of operational efficiency. We marry those two through precision to make the most customer-centric retailer on the market.
So if you take 6060, which has been a multi-award-winning innovation, we did more of the hard work for customers than ever been done before. One of the very cool stats, we delivered 1.5 million orders in last year in less than 30 minutes. Another one of my favorite big projects is Checkers Rush. It's our concept of a check out in the store, walk in, pick up the products off the shelf, walk out. We use advanced AI and machine vision technology and cameras to identify which products and brands customers are taking from the shelf, and then we automatically pull your bank card. We're really excited about our new Shoprite X campus. It's a purpose-built mixed-use development, and it's really been built with collaboration in mind. So everything is very purposefully designed. I've been in retail 17 years, but I realized some of the best ideas in innovation have come from people that have been doing this business a couple of months.
It's not a job or a position. When you work at Shoprite X, it's like learning how to passion, and we have a broad diversity. So it's always learning something.
And we've got the ability to innovate, first ability to be quite creative and to solve problems and to leverage tools and maybe work out. So I think it's kind of really in organization. It's more about how we deliver value to our customers.
It's collaborative, you inspire to come to work, you encourage to take risks, fail fast. It's an awesome energy.
We are Shoprite, and this is Shoprite X.
I mean, if you look at that case study, if you go and read up about that, Peter Engelbrecht talks about precision retail. Their media side is it's something called Rainmaker Media. It's in-house media agency. You look at how accurate they are in terms of getting the best money, the best return for the investment. So every single touch point has thought through. I've got a guy who used to work in my team many years ago, Hannes Costa. Hannes works at Shoprite X, 250 people, largely people are data scientists, actuaries, predictive scientists, do a lot of modeling. And I said to him, I said, Hannes, so how's it there? Some smart guys, yes. No, look, keep going to know yourself. He says, and what it does is it takes the guesswork out of it. Also, in talking with Neil Schroeder, because Neil, a year before Tivika's year of me judging these awards, Neil, they cleaned up, they won everything. He was talking about how difficult it was to bring together old school retailers who literally wanted to take the forklift and the pallet and new younger people, younger both in age and mindset, in terms of data science and how these two come together. Now, this is after the Whitey Boston era and the Whitey's reign. And Checkers never have a loyalty card, was his logic. Today, Shoprite X, 31 million users. They claim, now of course I say they claim, the PR that they wrote themselves says they saved 17 billion last year. But I look at it now, I've written enough PR reports. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying let's take a number. Let's be ruthless. Let's say it's 1 billion out of 17, so we wiped off 16. That's a decent effort. You know what I mean? And I think that's one of those cases. For many years, we've looked at cases far away. We've looked at Harvard Business Review cases and all the classic cases around the world, Disney and all of that stuff. It's wonderful to have a South African case, and it's not just this. I can tell you right now, I know some of the guys at Discovery, and they're doing a lot of good work. And please, I want to just catch this. None of these, I'm not endorsed by any of these brands. This is absolutely me giving you my view of the thing. And it's not right or wrong, it's just an opinion. But I think, there's a lot of substance. Well, I hope there's a lot of substance in what I'm showing you. Let's go back to London. 2 cricket grounds in London. One is called the Oval, Kia Oval, and one's called Lords. A South African guy, ex-cricketer, Steve Elworthy, runs the Kia Oval. Now, in chatting with Steve last year in his offices, he said, Dave, one of the big things with being the CEO, you're not a cricketer anymore. And if everyone was just like you, life would be cool. He says, but it's not like it. He says, now, to get a sunny day in London, you don't get that every day. And to get people into my house, I think the capacity there is about 27,000 people at the Oval. To get them in here to watch cricket is not a simple task, because cricket, as we know, is a longer game. Even the T20 stuff takes a bit of time. He says, now, one of the things is a lot of kids don't have the patience that I want to do it. He says, now, it's a generalization, not every kid likes it, but a lot of kids do like computer games. So now you start talking about a non-obvious partnership. So he goes to Microsoft Xbox. They're not the most obvious place you'd go to first, I guess. And they then build what is now a whole area with childminders, full gaming chairs, big screen consoles. If you've got kids or you play games or whatever, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, where these youngsters come in and they play games. He said, that breaks my heart as an ex-cricketer. The game's but they're He said, but at least now I've got their parents on an alcohol-free stand. He says, let me tell you about some other changes. We're speaking about consumers changing and voting with their purse wallet. He said that people are now asking in surveys they don't want fish and chips, they don't want burgers and chips, they don't want pies and chips. They want, he says, what's kale? What kale chips? What are those things? That's what people want. He said, I don't want it, but I'm a sample of one. He said they're asking for a duck wrap, healthier eating options, vegan options, vegetarian options, the rise of that. He says, but the most astonishing stat for him is that today, 30% of the beers poured at the Kia Oval, zero alcohol. He said it's in his lifetime, he never thought he'd see that as sporting venue. People vote differently. And the point is, you can either say the same or not. Now, I can tell you that a lot of those sporting venues are world-class and moving with the times, because it's hard to get people to spend a day at your house when they've got 100 other things to do. And so the point is, how do you change? Back down to Cape Town. For those of you, we all probably know, most of us know, there are over 200 wine farms that we can go and sit and eat. There are much more than 200, but 200 we can eat and drink and enjoy ourselves. Vergenhoek is by no stretch of the imagination the biggest or best known of those. So what did they decide to do a few years ago? Organic farming. not that new. There are quite a few organic farms around. So they start no herbicides, no pesticides, all the rest of it. But what they then do is decide to introduce Indian runner ducks. So these are flightless ducks, quite big, 1,000 off, and they go out and they eat the slugs, the snails, the insects, the worms in between the vines, and their droppings then become part of the fertilizer. And then the law of unintended consequences kick in. This becomes a tourist attraction. So now last year, again, as I say to you, I don't like using third-hand things are full of the internet. So I want to go there. First time I've been to Falcon, I want to check that this thing's actually working the way people tell me. And there it is. 2 buses, big buses of people, obviously with their camera phones, and there they are taking photographs, and it's become a tourist attraction. The point I'm making is that some of these changes are not big, capital, expensive changes. They're small changes. In the case of the DNA, it was a lady looking up and understanding and joining the dots between unemployment, people who have got arts and crafts, and the notion, the traditional notion of Christmas. Steve Elworthy, the research tells you what to do. So now you can either ignore it or go with it. Checkers, different proposition. Massive capital investment, ongoing, big IT systems, AI, lots of other things going on. It's a big machine, okay? Yeah, it's a different take on it. And so often in marketing, it's to understand the multiple touch points and why people buy. Now, a lot of marketers think that's the brand. We spoke about the rational and emotional. We spoke about, maybe it's the digital, the serving. Sometimes it's just price. Sometimes at the end of the day, in tough economic times, it gets down to the value price equation. What am I prepared to pay for value? Now, some of us will pay more for something that we value. May not make sense to the person next to you, but that's not the issue. The issue is that just now we were speaking. I digress slightly, but I'll give you an example of that. Last year, Toyota, one of the leading car manufacturers globally, we know they're a market leader, family car, all the rest of it. I do a session, senior leadership session in Durban, and we talk about, and they say, we are not too big to fail. We're not going to poo-poo the Chinese and Indian car manufacturers like we did the Koreans and Hyundai and Kia of 20 years ago. They said because when you strip down the Fortuner and the Chinese equivalent, component for component, value for money, that's right up there. And that's an example of somebody saying we're not too big to fail, because the opposite side of that is it becomes quite catastrophic for your business. And the point is sometimes it's money. Let's not kid ourselves. Sometimes at the end of the day, we've got to understand that whatever we're going to do, how do we reinvent ourselves so that we can save money? How do we, Neil Schroeder, the guy from innovation, talks about we do more of the hard work for customers than ever before. They do a lot of that back end work. A lot of it's machine. Doesn't matter how it works. I, as a consumer, don't care. What I care is that what I get served is what I asked for, what I opted in for, and what is accurate for my preference, my consideration set. And maybe 1 or 2 things outside, but very closely linked to my consideration set. We know that it's convenient these days. You can pick up, you can drop off stuff. These things, it feels like they've always been here, but they haven't always been here. Now, in South Africa, you can't directly compare prices A versus B. Okay, you can go on price check and sites like that, but not on in store. This is an example of Aldi in the UK. And there they look at a product and they say, would you pay $4.30 at Tesco or $1.49? You make the decision. Now, some person would say, but this is, I looked at the ingredients and all the rest of it, and I'm really a health freak. Well, I'm very careful about what I put in my body. I'm prepared to pay this price because it's got value. The next person says, I just wanted a vaguely healthy drink. I'd rather buy this one. If you go in store at Tesco, now if I take the opposite example, Aldi is known to be a price leader. If I go at the staples, bread, milk, margarine, that sort of stuff, they often have a sticker on the actual in-store, and it says, this is an Aldi price match. I've done the work for you. I've done more of the hard work for you, the consumer, than ever before. Hoping, of course, to keep the people that they buy their full basket, full trolley in Tesco, as opposed to a shared basket. So again, how do we reinvent? And I said earlier, the butterfly and the bull, we'll get into that now. What I'm saying is some of the changes are small, obviously thought through. Some of the changes are big. You need committees, board meetings, capex. Okay, and you got to decide, I guess, as people and as business owners, managers, leaders, where are we on the continuum? Another one, and I made the point earlier, if there's one thing I could do over, I would do this differently. I would bring more people along in a genuine, empathetic way to be part of the greater marketing, the greater culture, because it's an attitude. Now, these cartoons that I've used by a very famous guy in America called Tom Fishburne, and he writes and he does a lot of simple, I say simple stuff. He distills complex things via a simple cartoon, as many cartoons do, into the issue. The issue is we all want to be customer centric, but it's not what we become busy. DW, the guy actually runs the factory. Yet there was a tour through the factory. I was there. So I looked at this. It's always one of those out of body, but you look back and you say to yourself, things have changed. Things have changed because at one stage it's about numbers and charts, and sure they were there. I drove past and I saw all the charts, and there's no doubt production, because it's a global export. We know that those pilots go, a lot of them go out, and 30% are local. Obviously, the balance 70%. So you can't mess around and say, well, we're having a trip. Sorry, miss the target because we're having a trip. Doesn't make sense. But let me show you a very simple thing that happened to me a few weeks ago. And so often, I guess, as scholars, you get trained to look at and correct things. You read cases and you often say, well, what could you have done differently? So the notion is to almost pick up the things that are wrong and improve it. So we are a constant improvement. It's part of our learning. But also these days, I try to find really good stories. And a few weeks ago, I was doing a session of work in Mauritius. And at the end of the week, I flew my wife over and we were going to have a week holiday. That's how it is. So we packed differently, separately. So she gets there and day one, she realizes she doesn't have a toothbrush. Well, I said to her, well, there's no shops around this particular hotel because I've been here a week. So we're going to go to the shops, but right now, just eat a chewing gum for now. While we sort this problem out, I said, but let's just go down to the reception area at the hotel, because sometimes they have a vanity case and you're asking me, go down there, and this particular hotel that I was staying at didn't have it, which is fine. And the shop was closed and so on. Anyway, so I said, okay, we're going to sort it out just now. Let's just go for a walk on the beach after breakfast. We walk along and we get to another hotel, probably 2 k's down the road on the sand. So I say to my wife as a throwaway comment, because obviously I'm not in the zone, I'm not thinking about a toothbrush the whole time. I just remember, and I said to her, hey, by the way, why don't we just go to this hotel and ask them? She said, we're not staying here. I said, no, I know that. But we're not going to be dishonest. We're going to disguise it and see if I can maybe just buy a little thing. We just need to get this sorted out. So I go there. And this is what happens. I say to the lady, look, excuse me, we're not staying here. And I explain the whole story. She looks at us. She says, absolutely. Would you mind coming with me to the spa area? I will get you a little toothbrush kit. And again, that's not a big thing. Now, obviously, that was agreed beforehand. She can't just go make decisions, because she was the lady at the front desk. She probably didn't have the mandate. That was agreed long before we got there. A simple moment of magic. Not a big capex, not a big board meeting, not a range of, none of that stuff. Just one simple task. So I then said to her, would you mind if I take a photograph and use it? And then she had to get clearance from the Western and all the Western. The point of the story is that those are the simple moments of magic of just keep on reinventing. The Western has obviously got a brand and it's a sort of medium to upper end brand. The point of the story is it would have been easier to say no, less hassle. I don't know how many people would have said no. Maybe more would have said no. Maybe more would have said yes. I don't know. I don't really know. But she didn't say no. In fact, she said yes. So that's an example of a small thing. Let me show you 2 last examples of big things. The one is JFK in New York, okay? TWA airline flew for many, many years and stopped flying long before I'd ever been on an aeroplane. And I'd never flown TWA. Now, they've got a piece of real estate on the runway at JFK. Now, that's a lot of money. What do? This is not a simple thing of giving a toothbrush to somebody. You've got a building that stands vacant for years. A few years ago, they decided they're going to change it into a hotel. So what? hotels on airway on airports are dime a dozen. Most major cities have got that. Well, what they do is they say, but hold on, we're going to make it in the theme of the 70s, in the heyday of TWA. So they use a marketing book called Nostalgia. They're pulling people like myself who've never flown TWA. And suddenly I am intrigued that I want to stay. And I stayed at that hotel a few years back on JFK. And you walk into 1970. They've got like a museum of all the uniforms of the pilots and the air stewards and the food and the setup. And it's weird. They set up offices. It's like you're walking into a time warp. And the point I'm making is, across all of these examples, hopefully I've shown you an array of different examples to show you that reinvention isn't one thing. It's about finding your thing and deciding what your customer is going to do, using insights and research and all the stuff that one does. The second example is London, the Spurs Stadium. For those of you who follow football, it's not absolutely new. It's about 6 or 7 years old now, the new Spurs Stadium. Fantastic, world class. Reinvented from the start when they built it. So I did a tour there last year. Again, I'm not a huge football fan and I'm not a Spurs fan, but the point is I wanted to just see this thing. I go there, they were busy setting up for Beyonce World Tour. Now, if you look at those major artists, Rihanna, Beyonce, Taylor Swift, Taylor Swift sold out Wembley. Taylor Swift moved the Welsh Rugby Test to London because Taylor Swift made more money for the Welsh Rugby Union. We played Wales in London. It's the reality of the world we live in. The point of the story is, I was looking at this thing and I was amazed at what they've got there. How they've built a stadium knowing, and if you look at the English Football League, they play a lot of games, a lot of soccer games. I mean, it's every Monday, Wednesday, they've got Europe, they've got this, it's not like they don't play. Yet, despite that, they could get more money out of this machine. They could squeeze more money out by building another field, an AstroTurf, artificial turf, that slides under the normal turf. So most of the year they have the grass there when the guys play football. Then they have the Astro under it, okay? And I went down and I looked at all and I said, but why do you guys need this Astro? They said for American gridiron football. They only play like 4 or 5 games, but they're trying to bring American football into the UK. Now, they say, but we've also got dressing rooms for them. I said, yeah, sure, of course you've got dressing rooms for them to change. They said, no, we've got separate dressing rooms. I said, well, you told me there are only 4 or 5 games. They got these rooms. I said, but why do you have separate dressing rooms that you only use on 4 or 5 days, and you've got all these dressing rooms over here? They said, because their squad's bigger. They've got like a squad of 40 people. Now you must see the size of the American football dressing rooms. That's massive. 40 people with all the mod cons. I mean, the main locker room for the Spurs first side. I mean, they've got like this walk-in pool on an angle, that ice bars, everything. You must see the restaurant. That's world class. Okay? And then, of course, the guy got to the point, he said, before you ask me, we haven't really won anything lately. He said, so it's all flash, but we also got to play a bit of soccer. So the point of the story is that those are big examples. The Checkers example, and these are massive, multi-million-dollar examples. A lot of us perhaps never work on those type of things, but we can give away a toothbrush. We certainly can do that. We can be nice to people. We can be considerate to people, and we can understand where people are and understand and appreciate that people sometimes do things very differently to us. It's not right or wrong. Who are we to judge as business people? We there to satisfy a need. Moving towards the end, no talk would be complete without AI. I just want to say that AI, the hammer isn't going to solve every problem. And it's sad though, that the same guy draws the cartoon about a little girl who wants the AI to do her dream job. Now, we talk about prompt engineering, and of course, that's the big buzzword these days. I've got a friend of mine. I'm going to show you just 2 short videos quickly, very, very short. A friend of mine was the top creative guy at the agency we used, FCB, probably the 2nd biggest agency in the country after Ogilvy. And he then broke away and formed his own agency that is unashamedly AI thing. But when he does make the point, he says, I wanted to dispel the notion that AI is going to take everybody's jobs. And what he's done now, 2 big pieces of work lately, the Samsung were one of the sponsors of the Olympics. The Olympics were 2 months ago in Paris. Paralympics and Olympics. Stu and his team did a collaboration around writing a song using a whole lot of artists. And if you look there, I don't know if you can see at the back there, 29 artists, he brought in real people. So in other words, he didn't create the music using AI. He used the AI to do the mixing and the editing along with video, etc., etc. So that's the first bit of big work he did. And the second one I'm going to show you just now is Audi. He did a collaboration with Ogilvy. Ogilvy, one of their big clients is Audi. Audi launched a series of new vehicles in Germany. The vehicles are not in South Africa. They send stock images through, and Stu and his team used AI to create. So that second video, none of that stuff's real. But I can tell you what I do know is that Audi was so impressed, they asked for a follow-up video. And do you think you can make this stuff in the real world? Because it's so impressive, using a lot of the Audi, and their most characteristic logo was the 4 circles. So that's an example of how you've gone from AI to the real world, from the real world back into AI, and you flip-flopping. And he's doing a lot of work now, understanding that there's a place for both of those. Now, this is a very light touch on AI. This is certainly we can dig much deeper. I just want to play you 2 short videos, and you'll get an idea of his thinking. So this is the first one. I mean, all done with AI. And even his name, you probably can't see at the back there, but agency is spelled AI agency. And again, not by accident.
It begins with a vision, a tapestry of inspiration, a dynamic blend of elegance and ambition, designed with a surname, crafted to the bold, inspired by the progressive, a range of special edition models, curated for those who want to seek abilities that can express every acute angle, each firm curve, a testament to your nature, and each style with cutting-edge mobility, a 30 years of sophistication and performance. To have fun is to announce your presence. This is our vision of progress, introducing a curated collection inspired by Audi.
Again, all done AI. So what I'm saying is those objects, the pot holders, the bag, etc., Audi are now asking if they can in their boutique store produce it with. I mean, you'd think it's like we go the other way, but yet, we still live in the real world. Now, I started off by saying, is it a butterfly or a bull? Now, those are almost on opposite ends. And the butterflies, we know, is a complete change of shape from the one caterpillar to something that is completely different. A bull, you say the word bull, and maybe a bull in a china shop, normally head down, and I want to have a go at you because I don't like change. Now, through the change management programs that I've either been part of or had to facilitate, it's not about change, it's about the fact that you don't know it's going to be better. So why must I go through the pain when you can't tell me, how do you know it's going to be, how do you know it's going to be a success? Oh, you can try your best, but sometimes things don't work out. We all have failures. And a lot of us then find ourselves somewhere in between. A lot of us are like, I guess, a duck. I'm probably like that. It all looks fine, and then it's just chaos under the water, just to get through to the next thing. And so often you go from one set of circumstance to the next set of circumstance, or you just hide off and say, listen, I'll just go along, but I'm not going to make too much of an effort. Or you're the chameleon, where you change from situation to situation. I guess probably the correct term with that is situational leadership, in terms of moving as you do. But I think as leaders, we can't be around the hedgehog side of the equation. We've got to find a space. And again, this is not right or wrong. And in a workshop type exercise, you break these things out and you do the exercise. But it's really just to use that title to say to you, where are you in terms of change and reinvention, both in your person as well as as well as in business. And you can look at reinvention on a grand scale. You look at civilizational reinvention. You look at the ancient civilizations of the Egyptians and the Romans and what happened after that, through to countries, to companies, to individuals and teams, etc. I mean, one of the big success stories, I guess, is the reinvention of the Springboks. And I'm not just talking about the rugby. When they can play, they've always been able to play. But the presence of mind with the marketing of the Springboks, Again, 2 weeks ago, they played their game against Argentina and we won by a huge score. Pre that, there was a reach for a dream. I don't know if any of you saw it on social media. Did you see it, Paul? Little girl, Bella, from East London. Reach for a dream. Now, yeah, you got Sia Khaleesi in the week of a test match, a deciding test match, the presence. Point I'm over the trolley through the factory yesterday, same thing. So when I see these things, I look at it in layers and I say to myself, how's this? This guy's listened to his marketers. Sia Khaleesi says to her, not little girl, hello Bella. I look forward to meeting you on Saturday. I know it's your dream to be with the Springboks. Don't worry if you're nervous. I'm also nervous when I run out, but I'm going to hold your hand. I get goosebumps just telling you the story. The point is, at that stage, he's not playing rugby because you can't not be a Springbok because you're not playing rugby. You're always a Springbok. And I think that's the point there. And I look at how that has evolved, how the team has reinvented themselves, how they've worked with Rassie. Where Rassie can say to him, and for a lot of us, we've seen that chasing the sun. When Sia got a bit clever, he said, let me explain to you. Sia Khaleesi is not the biggest thing in South Africa. South Africa is the biggest thing in South Africa. Now you've got to have a sense of maturity as a group to say that, because people don't like it. Their lip gets a bit tight, you get a bit cross, eyebrows get a bit raised. How do we bring people along that we get to a sense of maturity where we can do that? Where now Sia Khaleesi goes in the week of a test match and welcomes Bella. And for those of you who watched it, the little girl ran out with a little headband, and it was just a touching moment because I, most times, probably don't even notice the little kid running out with the ball. Obviously, their parents would notice it because it's a big thing. But I mean, for me, it was not as important, but it was a moment where I actually told my wife and I told a few other people, watch this, because it's one of those things. So the point of the story is moments of magic. They're all around us, reinvention, a lot of it's a mindset. Nearly the end, please bear with me. Through my 35-year career, I look at Firestone when we started. The big change process towards the end of the 80s and the 90s was TQM. For those of you in production, total quality management. Kaizen from Japan, those are the big notions. Total quality management. We almost stopped places. People were taken out of their jobs, put into a project office for 6 months. This was before project software and all that stuff. Gantt charts on the board. You don't have that luxury anymore. People don't get taken out and put into special project offices. You've got to be comfortable with running change in parallel. Fast forward a few years later, I was in Johannesburg at Nasher, and the big change there, ISO. The big thing in getting ISO, it's a massive issue. And again, the point I'm making is you can read through all of that as at your leisure if you'd like. The notion is change doesn't wait for you. You've got to run on the treadmill while moving. The expression is paint the plane while it's flying. It's uncomfortable to do it, but you've got to become comfortable with being uncomfortable. And it's not easy. It sounds easy for me. I sometimes don't like this. I often hear myself say, I wish it was just like the way it was. You know what I mean? And the moment you find yourself saying that, you tend to be spinning slower, the Jack Walsh thing, than the world. Nearly the end. A framework. And again, guys, please, the Dean, Professor Lloyd, expressed, I'm here, chat with me, whatever. I'll share all of the stuff or any of the stuff that you want. This is not my framework. It's a framework from a lady called Dr. Libayeva Nadia. She's American. She's originally from Kazakhstan. Does a lot of work around reinvention. And it's about an ecosystem. So when you start making a change, even the lady at the Western, She didn't just wake up and decide I'm going to give something away, because most people don't want to get into trouble. There was some ecosystem, some safety net, some culture that allowed her to create a moment of magic. It wasn't a big thing. Wasn't a big thing. I'm making it a big thing to express to you that it can be a big thing. And so again, if you want that framework, I'd be glad to share it with you. Please just credit Nadia. It's not my framework, and that's why I put it there. Last slide. We live in a world of digital. Every second talk, I get asked, every second mail is AR, this AR, what's your view on AR? I'm not an AR expert, but what I do know is, and in talking with people much younger and they've got their career ahead of them, you have to understand this stuff. You can't swim against the tide. You've got to be in the zone to some degree. And even though we're living in a digital, always on world, we're still people. And the whole idea is to still have that human touch in a world of faster spinning, sometimes chaotic digital. We are still people. Thanks very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much for, I think, a very interesting and a well-presented publication. You had my attention, and I'm sure the attention of most here. I think this session now is for your question and answers. But before I open the floor for that, I would like to sort of make a comment, have two comments. You know, it's just recently as yesterday, you were speaking about you need to change with how your customer will need to change and at the rate the customer change. One of our part-time students found in, and he works at a big casino here in PA, one mentioned the name. And I actually asked him about the fact that there's a lot of these bingo casinos coming up. There's all the mushroom casinos are moving in this region, and I asked him how that affected the traffic into the casino. And he said, because my assumption was that they were losing customers, and he said that was true. But on the other hand, they went online, and the online gambling has increased by 71%. So if you don't change with your needs of the customer and the wants of the customer, you're going to lose out. So it's true what you said earlier, that you need to change at speed or even faster than your customer. And then the other comment I want to make is I worked for a company in the automotive sector. Many years ago, they were looking at reducing costs, operating costs. Because we went into a sales period, the economy was bad. And like you said earlier, sometimes you don't need to make big changes to achieve your objectives. So what they picked up was that there was a lot of people working in the company that was working there for years, 30 years plus. And especially the office-based staff. And many of them has never been employed. You ask them where you work, I work at this water company, but they've never seen how they put their product together. So what the company did, they built a miniature production line in the training center, took all that office staff at certain intervals and gave them overalls and hard hats and safety shoes and on a mini line, and they actually had to sort of spend a couple of days on that line to try and sort of inform them what was going on. And what happened there was a lot of benefits that came after that. They started sort of to understand what the life was of the ground production line, what it meant if a part was missing, a safety critical item or a critical, a noble part where your production cannot continue without the part. And they had also a high rate of stock deterioration. And after that training session, actually there was a big decrease in the deteriorated items, because people understood now, you know, I'm part of a solution here. We need as a company, and I'm part of the company to reduce our costs, and I'm responsible. So they got the bigger picture. So I agree with you in terms of what you said. Sometimes you don't need to make big, extensive changes. So people would say that. I'm going to now ask the floor if there's any questions. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Thank you very much. So my question is just around moving at the sort of the speed of your customers. So how do you approach, if let's say the company that you work for, the people that make the bigger decisions aren't really seeing that the customers are moving at a faster pace than what the company's at, and they don't really listen to what you have to say?
Yeah, it's a tough one because essentially you're asking for leadership, and I think if you looked at that one slide that was quoted there in terms of 4,700 leaders, I've got a whole lot of other work in terms of how some companies perhaps don't have the best leadership. Now the challenge, of course, is how do you delegate up? How do you take things up the chain? And it's sometimes difficult, you know. There's another piece of work called the Titanic syndrome. Are you too big to fail? And I made the point to her earlier, where it's easier if the change can be led at multiple places in the organization. So the only thing I can suggest to you is to keep on plugging away and try with forums. Now, a lot of the times it depends on the culture of the organization. Sometimes they have voice of the employee, sometimes it's listened to, sometimes it's just a nuisance. You know what I mean? Now, I don't know your particular case and your example, but I'm hoping that a lot of that stuff will bubble up, because I mean, just back to production and quality circles, and a lot of the notion is not absolutely new. Neil Schroeder, the guy from Innovation and Checkers, said there, he'd been in retail 17 years. A lot of the ideas come from people who've been there, man. That's exactly right. Because you're not there long enough to ask those stupid questions. And there's no stupid questions. People are embarrassed when you're in a job for 5 years, take a number. People think you should know. But people don't know. They haven't been to the floor. And I think the wrong way to answer you is hopefully you can keep asking those questions with a view to either get your leadership to change or leave. And often, and I mean, Nadia, this lady I spoke about, she has a much harsher view on life. And somebody asked her once, the company's not changing, and she said, let them die. That was her view, you know. Now that's a harsh thing to do because you want to resuscitate, and there's lots of things you can do. So I don't know if I'm answering you. I am answering you a long way around because there's no short answer short of walking in the CEO's office and saying you can do that, but it comes with a set of consequences. No, I'll tell you a joke. Through my career, I've had the benefit of working for great companies and shocking companies. Okay, and with great companies, you're allowed that latitude as long as and I worked in the company was Nasher, the Nasher group in its heyday, and I worked with some fantastic guys. I was a young guy making my way, and a fantastic guy called Chris Coble, one of the brightest guys I know. And Scopes allowed us to have a go, you know. And he said, but don't be stupid and don't just come with a poorly thought idea, but you can come with ideas. And Chris at that stage was a sales marketing director. Later on became, at 35, the youngest CEO at Nasher. Great guy. I've also worked in some shocking companies where the culture was not that. And you tried that trick. It wouldn't, TCM, don't come under. So, yeah.
Any other questions?
Another question. Let's go here first and we'll come there. Thanks.
All right. So when you started with the first slide, we got to see that a lot of the dominating brands are tech brands. And the issue I kind of wanted to pose to you is that a lot of these tech brands and the products and services they give are constantly changing. But you find that as a user or a customer, you experience a lot of frustration with the changes because there isn't enough education about why these changes are happening. I mean, my WhatsApp is constantly changing and I don't know why. Today I can like a status like I can do on Instagram and I don't know why. It's the same as on a bigger scale, let's say banking apps or like financial systems. You see all these changes happening in the name of reinvention, but there's so little education as to, number one, why are we making these changes? And how, and number two, how is it to benefit the customer? So how can so I think the direct way of asking this question is, how do we as marketers reinforce education of why we're making these changes?
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely. I mean, you find a lot of that, and I think, you know, if it frustrates you, what do you think it does to me? It makes me, because I guess, and I made the point earlier about the rate of change. A lot of those changes are necessary, but as you said, the education, and I don't always like it when people just, I don't know if this mic's working properly. I don't know if people just put all this stuff for the sake of it. I always say to myself, is this a market avoid, or is it really well thought through? And I'm a marketer, and the point I'm trying to make is, I'm not trying to sell you Kool-Aid. I'm saying as critical thinkers, we need to ask these questions. The short answer is, more education. There's so many platforms these days that you can use. I mean, YouTube just being the second biggest search engine after Google. Those are the facts. So you could use Google, but drive me as a user and you as a user to that, or send me something via communication. If you look at the range of digital communication tools that are available now, the CRM tools, I mean, they're just a dime a dozen. You know, from HubSpot to Hootsuite to Google, Alice, you got lots of stuff. So there's no excuse. Let me give you an example. I'm consulting to a business now. I don't know if you know, if you don't. Apple, SIM cards in the phone, nothing new. SIM cards stick in the phone and it works, okay? Apple in America these days, Apple's come out, no SIM cards. There is no plastic SIM card, it doesn't exist. It's in there, it's called the eSIM. Okay, now, a lot of people don't know that, and so the eSIM company that I'm working with as a young startup are saying, well, we're just going to go sell eSIMs. I said, people don't know about eSIMs. So you've got to take a step back. And the guy I'm working with is quite a tech guy. Now, I'm not a huge lover of tech, so I'm a good example. I said, but Ed, not everybody knows this. You can't understand it. And I think that's the challenge. Sometimes when I make a point, not everyone's like us. If everyone was like me, the world would be perfect. It's not. It's not the case. And I think that's the point. As marketers, leaders, CEOs, is to actually be empathetic and genuinely understand where people are on the curve. I made a point earlier just about pricing. Pricing is an example. It's a very sensitive issue, but certainly education, because people don't want to feel stupid. No one wants to feel stupid or be told they're stupid. So how do you tell me it's good? And I think that's your point. I think a lot of brands can educate, and there are more than enough platforms these days. In the world that we live in, you can serve me stuff. So it's not hard to send me a WhatsApp, and WhatsApp do that actually. They tell you why they've done something, you know, they always send you a little thing. But at least that is an option, whereas some of the other guys don't. They change the format, and I can't find where, you know what I mean, and then I just get irritated. And it takes me a few days to get over it.
I'll take the last question and then.
Oh, there's one over there. Oh, sorry, did you miss your chance?
Yeah, no.
He's going to ask me over.
I think, is there any other questions for the sake of time, perhaps?
There's one more, but I mean, maybe this one. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, cool. Thank you. I'm just having you do my job for me. So the next one would be like around the love the brand. So like, how do you approach a situation whereby maybe it's not that employees aren't, they're doing their work, but it's the situation like the cartoon animated, everyone's like, that's not my responsibility. And as much as you may have a top-down approach, where the CEO is like, okay, everyone, remember that we're all a team or a family, and to sort of like reinforce that this is sort of the company culture, the company values, but you're finding that there's not much engagement from the employees nonetheless. So I don't know how to approach something like that. Thank you.
Yeah, the answer is repetition with the culture program. Now, I've done not a hell of a lot of work, but enough work around culture change. I actually quite enjoy it. And it's ongoing. There is not, we had a saying many years ago, there's no off day. And how do you inculcate? And it's easy to say that, people say. And I think the one biggest thing we find is culture it cannot be a top-down initiative. It's got to be sideways. And I'll tell you right now, if your mate who's at the same level as you says, that's not how we do things around here, it carries more weight than you get paid. And I think it took us a little bit of learning to do that. You walk into a call center, a sales, a warehouse, etc., and the guys generally going to listen to you because they don't want to get into trouble. That doesn't mean they believe it. They just listen to you to get you out of their space. And what we then work out is you've got to create culture champions in all across the whole company. It cannot be an HR-driven initiative. That's a huge mistake. It can't be a CEO-driven initiative. It's got to be a company-driven. It can start there with the thinking and the notion, but then you've got to get people to live it. Now, just back to the rugby example. I mean, for those of you who watched it, you look at how many other leaders. You've got to have sense of comfort to be able to do that. Because if you're not comfortable, you're going to protect your patch, and you're not going to give the other guy the space even to talk. I'm smarter than you. If you don't believe me, I'll tell you. And I think to create culture, it's every day. I, through my career, sat through many budget meetings, many strategy meetings, very few culture meetings. Now you've got to ask yourself why. You go into most companies, they'll have like a little heart, or they'll have something silly that says our customers we love our staff, all that stuff. They will have that. That doesn't mean it is like that. That just means they put it there. And the point is, so if you look at that lady at the Western, I don't know what their culture change program, I don't know how much repetition they had to get, but I can tell you what we did for years is we worked very hard at that. And you've got to get culture champions across the board, not just top down. Don't let the title don't let the title fool you. People don't listen, they don't respect you, they'll just listen to you because you're the boss and they don't want to get fired, but that's not their heart. Thanks.
Thank you, Professor Matthew. I think thank you for your presence here and your sharing of I think, valuable and very interesting information and your experiences. So you may have the seat now. So we're going to call now on Dr. Porter, the HOD for the Department of Management Practice. Sorry, Dr. Dain, that we've gone over schedule, but I think it was very, very interesting. Thank you so much.
After that lecture, I'm sure you all want to register in the Faculty of Business and Economic Sciences. So application forms are available, all right, through Professor Amoa. Right, having said that, the year is 1989, and it was the my first fundraising for Sister Ethel, the founder of the Mission Vale Care Centre today. And that fundraising effort in 1989 was a fashion show disco at the Golden Fountain in Salsonieville. And to this day, I've never forgotten her words as she introduced herself to the audience. And she said, on your way to this venue, you traveled along Stanford Road, and on the right-hand side, there was just a sea of darkness. Do you know that that sea of darkness is actually Mission Vale, and that there are actually people living there? But all you see is darkness. And she said, you know what? Thank you for being here tonight and helping to start the first clinic in Mission Vale. And fast forward to 2023, the seed of the peri-urban project was planted at a meeting chaired by our Dean, Professor Lloyd. And the objective of this meeting was to discuss Vision 2030 and his vision for the faculty and the legacy of putting back into society and contributing something worthwhile to society. And to this end, the Mission Vale Peri-Urban Training Program was born. And through the assistance of the Mission Vale Care Centre, Lucky and Linda, as well as the ward councillor, Lee Tesman-Boyson, who some of you lecturers might know, and he is a graduate from my department. Well, through this group, they recruited a little group of approximately 60 informal traders and students who were running informal businesses or who wanted to start informal businesses. The community members came together, they identify potential business opportunities to be exploited, and training takes place once a month on the premises of the Mission Vale Care Centre. For the rest of the month,
The traders and students are encouraged to remain in contact with me and lecturers to consult, to pose questions if they have regarding their businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, the enthusiasm and the excitement which these students approach the training is a sight to behold. And this proves that here in Mission Vale, we have a community. We have a community who do want to improve their lot in life. And we do have a community who say, we don't want to stand at traffic lights with begging bowls. We do not want to stand at traffic lights and only rely on handouts. And this is the objective of the peri-urban training program. Through this program, businesses have come forward. In fact, Momentum came forward with a 10,000 rand donation. And this generous donation, we passed it over to the Mission Vale Care Centre, and we said, use this to improve your Wi-Fi facilities. In addition to this program, in my capacity as the program facilitator, we also allow our students, our final year, third year students, to become involved in this program. And what they do is they participate and they provide lectures to the students. We've had groups of students providing information on the business canvas. Last week we had somebody presenting on risks to business. By involving our third year students, by involving our senior students, we also provide students with the opportunity to realize that, you know what, the diploma in management or the qualification in management is not only about finding a job, but I can become a consultant. I can become a Doug Mattheus. I can consult a business as an alternative for a form of employment. We also provide through the training a platform to improve self-confidence skills, assertiveness skills, presentation skills. We allow the students to provide, to witness the application of the theory taught in class and to practice it in the real world. Lastly, the program also provides a mentoring opportunity to both students and traders as well. And ladies and gentlemen, this evening, you will have the opportunity during cocktails and canapes to meander through the courtyard and to see the products which these traders, as well as the centre, can provide. And as Doug has said, move with the times, and so we have. And we have a go-go machine. Right. So there's no need to pull out any cash. Pull out your cards. Spend freely. Christmas is around the corner, and there are very many attractive Christmas gifts at prices that equate to Temu. So, ladies and gentlemen, please support the traders, support the centre, and enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Tahin. You know, I think this afternoon we had a talk on sustainability, we had a presentation, and this actually fits in very well with that talk of this afternoon. You know, it's good to do good. You know, I think we come in this world naked and we leave naked. And I think we'll judge and propagate to others and how we did it. You know, so I just put on my pastor. So without further ado, I will call now on Professor Felix Samoa, the head of the Department of Marketing, to do the vote of thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Program Director. After listening to yesterday's inaugural lecture, Manik in today's public lecture. And if you try to marry the two, one can sum up the power of marketing. Marketing is so powerful. I think we all believe that. And I wonder whether any company can do without marketing. It's just not going to happen, and I don't think it is possible. So, on behalf of the School of Management Sciences, I would like to say, Prof. Mattheus, thank you very much. And I know you have spent quite a lot of time preparing for this insightful lecture, and we've learned a lot. Myself, as a marketing lecturer, my students, and all the invited guests, thank you so much. I'll invite our Doors to come and present. Okay. Next to our dean, thank you, Prof. Lloyd. I know the whole day has been a very busy day for you, but coming down to support the school, we really appreciate your support, and thank you very much. To all the invited guests, our students, thank you for coming. I don't know if the program director will provide a little bit information about
all the students that are local students. So, to the audience, thank you for your patience. Thank you for being here. To Professor Mattheus, it was very insightful, and I'm in logistics. So I won't change, I'll stick to logistics, but it was very insightful, very interesting, and thank you so much indeed. You're all invited for a light snack in the corridor. Thank you very much, people. Thank you.
Ja, die